When rescuers carried the injured Bobcat down from the mountain, they knew the odds were against him. Blind, deaf. His body was riddled with airgun pellets, his skin ravaged by disease, and his spirit barely clinging to life. At the veterinary clinic, he trembled at every touch, trapped in a silent, dark world where even kindness felt like a threat. No one expected him to survive the week. But then something unexpected happened. A golden retriever puppy named Tucker arrived at the facility. Breaking safety protocols, the puppy slipped into the room and approached the Bobcat. He refused to leave the Bobcat's side, and what he did next stunned the entire medical team. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The morning sun broke clear and golden over the San Bernardino Mountains, painting the pine-covered slopes in shades of amber and green. It was the kind of California autumn day that made you grateful to be alive. Crisp air, brilliant blue sky, and the scent of sage carried on a gentle breeze. But for wildlife rehabilitator Sarah Mitchell and veterinary technician Mike Torres, this beautiful morning would reveal something that would haunt them for months to come. The call had come in just after dawn. A hiker had spotted what looked like an injured bobcat near the old fire road, about 2 miles up the mountain trail. The description was troubling. The animal wasn't moving much, seemed disoriented, and appeared to be in serious distress. "Could be hit by a car and wandered up there," Mike suggested as they loaded their rescue equipment into Sarah's truck. At 42, Mike had seen his share of wildlife trauma in his 15 years at the Riverside Wildlife Center, but something about this call felt different. Sarah, a slender woman in her mid-30s with sun-lightened brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, nodded grimly. Or worse, we've had reports of people using bobcats for target practice in some of these remote areas. The drive up the winding mountain road took 30 minutes, and they had to hike another 20 minutes up a steep trail before they found him. What they discovered beneath a towering Jeffrey pine made them both freeze. The bobcat lay on his side in a small hollow, his breathing shallow and labored. Even from a distance, they could see something was terribly wrong. His once magnificent spotted coat was dull and patchy, with areas of angry red skin showing through. He didn't bolt at their approach, didn't even seem to register their presence at first. "Oh God," Sarah whispered, kneeling carefully a few feet away. "Mike, look at his eyes." The bobcat's eyes were clouded and unseeing, staring blankly ahead. When Sarah moved her hand in front of his face, there was no reaction, no flicker of awareness. "He's blind," Mike confirmed, his voice tight with emotion. He'd seen injured wildlife before, but this felt different. This felt like systematic cruelty. "And look," he pointed to small, telltale wounds peppered across the bobcat's body. "Those are airgun pellets. Someone's been using him for target practice." The bobcat suddenly jerked at Mike's voice, his head swinging toward the sound, but his movements were uncoordinated and frightened. He tried to stand, but his back leg gave out immediately, and he collapsed with a pitiful cry that neither rescuer would ever forget. "Easy, buddy," Sarah murmured, though she realized with a sinking heart that he probably couldn't hear her either. When she clapped her hands near his ears, there was no response. "Mike, I think he's deaf too." Working with practiced efficiency but infinite gentleness, they managed to wrap the terrified bobcat in a heavy blanket and secure him in their reinforced carrier. He weighed almost nothing, maybe 20 pounds when he should have weighed twice that. Every bone in his emaciated frame was visible beneath that damaged coat. The trip down the mountain was agonizing. Every bump in the trail made the bobcat cry out, and Sarah found herself whispering reassurances she knew he couldn't hear. Words meant more for her own breaking heart than for him. By the time they reached the Riverside Wildlife Center, Dr. Amanda Price was already scrubbed and waiting. Amanda, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and hands that could be both firm and incredibly gentle, had built her reputation on saving animals others had given up on. But even Amanda's experienced composure cracked when she saw what they'd brought her. "Jesus," she breathed, immediately beginning her examination. "How long has he been out there?" "Hard to say," Sarah replied, hovering anxiously. "Days, at least. Maybe longer." The examination revealed a catalog of suffering that made Amanda's jaw tighten with barely controlled anger. The airgun pellets, at least 15 of them, were embedded deep in muscle tissue throughout his body. His skin was ravaged by sarcoptic mange, a parasitic infection that caused intense itching and pain. His left hip was dislocated, likely from a fall or being kicked. He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and blood tests suggested his liver and kidneys were struggling. "Can you save him?" Mike asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Amanda was quiet for a long moment, her stethoscope pressed against the Bobcat's struggling chest. "Surgery to remove the pellets is out of the question right now. He's too weak, and they're too deep. The hip dislocation needs time to stabilize. First, we focus on keeping him alive. Warmth, fluids, nutrition, medication for the mange and infections. If he makes it through the next 72 hours..." She trailed off, unwilling to make promises she might not be able to keep. They set him up in the center's intensive care room, a quiet, temperature-controlled space away from the noise and activity of the main facility. The Bobcat, whom Sarah had quietly named Phoenix in her head, spent his first night trembling on a heated pad, his sightless eyes staring at nothing, trapped in a prison of darkness and silence. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Phoenix's recovery room. Tucker was a 6-month-old golden retriever puppy who'd been temporarily staying at the center while his owner, elderly Mr. Peterson, recovered from hip surgery. Tucker was everything a golden retriever should be: friendly, gentle, endlessly optimistic, and possessed of an uncanny emotional intelligence that seemed to transcend his puppy silliness. Sarah had brought Tucker in during her rounds, intending to let him stretch his legs in the facility's enclosed garden. But as they passed Phoenix's room, Tucker stopped dead, his nose working overtime at the crack under the door. "Not now, Tuck," Sarah said gently, tugging on his leash. But Tucker sat down, planted all 4 paws, and refused to move. He whined, not his usual playful sound, but something different, something almost mournful. "What is it, boy?" Sarah knelt beside him, and Tucker immediately pressed against the door, whining again. Against her better judgment, Sarah opened the door just a crack. Tucker slipped through immediately, padding across the room with surprising gentleness toward Phoenix's bed. "Tucker, no!" Sarah started, but froze. The puppy approached slowly, his usual bouncing energy completely subdued. He sniffed carefully at Phoenix's bed, then, with infinite care, lay down about 2 feet away, close enough to provide company but far enough not to threaten. Phoenix, who had been lying motionless, suddenly lifted his head. His nostrils flared, taking in the puppy's scent. For the first time since his rescue, something other than fear crossed his features. Confusion, maybe. Curiosity. Tucker's tail gave a tentative wag, thumping softly against the floor. "Well, I'll be damned," Mike muttered from the doorway, where he'd arrived to check on Phoenix. "Should we separate them?" Dr. Amanda appeared behind him, observing the scene with clinical interest. "Let's see what happens. The bobcat seems calmer." It was true. Phoenix's trembling had eased. His breathing had steadied. And though he couldn't see the puppy, couldn't hear his gentle panting, he seemed to sense Tucker's presence. Perhaps through the vibrations on the floor. Perhaps through scent. Perhaps through something none of them could understand. 30 minutes, Amanda decided. Then we separate them and see how Phoenix responds. But 30 minutes later, when Sarah tried to call Tucker away, the puppy refused to leave. And Phoenix, who had been so terrified of every human touch, had inched closer to the puppy until they were nearly touching. "This is crazy," Mike whispered. "This is nature," Amanda corrected gently. "Animals understand suffering in ways we never will." From that moment on, Tucker became Phoenix's constant companion. Every morning, the puppy would settle beside the bobcat's bed, a warm, steady presence in Phoenix's world of darkness and silence. And slowly, miraculously, Phoenix began to change. The first week was critical. Amanda administered medication for the mange, carefully monitoring Phoenix's fragile system. The pellets remained embedded, too dangerous to remove surgically given his weakened state and the blood work that showed concerning clotting factors. "His blood isn't clotting properly," Amanda explained to Sarah during a late-night check-in. "Likely from the infections and overall system stress. Surgery could kill him." But Phoenix was fighting. Encouraged by Tucker's presence, he began eating. Small amounts at first, then more eagerly. The high-calorie diet Amanda prescribed was helping him gain weight, and his daily injections and treatments became easier to administer. "It's the strangest thing," Sarah told Mike one afternoon, preparing Phoenix's medication. "He used to panic at every touch. Now when Tucker's nearby, he just accepts it, like he knows we're trying to help." Tucker seemed to understand his role perfectly. When Phoenix needed injections, the puppy would sit close, occasionally pressing his nose against the bobcat's side. A reassurance that Phoenix could feel, even if he couldn't see or hear his friend. The mange treatment was working too. The angry red patches on Phoenix's skin began to heal, and his coat started growing back in patches. The constant itching that had tormented him eased, and for the first time, they saw him attempt something that looked almost like contentment. A subtle relaxation in his posture when Tucker curled up beside him. "They're actually bonding," Amanda observed during a routine exam. "I've seen dogs befriend cats, but a wild bobcat? This is remarkable." The most extraordinary moment came during feeding time, 3 weeks into Phoenix's recovery. Sarah had set out Phoenix's meal, a mixture of raw meat and supplements, when Tucker trotted in with his own food bowl. Instead of eating in separate areas as they'd expected, Tucker calmly set his bowl down beside Phoenix's, and they ate side by side, the puppy occasionally pausing to glance at his friend as if checking that everything was okay. "I'm getting my camera," Mike said, his voice thick with emotion. "No one's going to believe this." But it wasn't just the eating that amazed them. Tucker had appointed himself Phoenix's guide. When Phoenix attempted to walk, still stumbling from his hip injury and disorientation, Tucker would position himself alongside, letting Phoenix lean against his sturdy puppy body. They moved slowly, Tucker adjusting his pace to Phoenix's careful, uncertain steps. Sarah found herself staying late most evenings, just watching them. There was something profound in their friendship, something that reminded her why she'd dedicated her life to wildlife rehabilitation. These two creatures, from completely different worlds, had found a language beyond words, or sight, or sound. A language of presence, of patience, of pure companionship. By week 5, Phoenix had gained 8 pounds and could walk short distances with Tucker's help. His coat, though still patchy, showed signs of the magnificent animal he'd once been. His hip had stabilized, though he would always walk with a slight limp. But the good news came with harsh realities. Dr. Amanda called Sarah and Mike into her office after completing a comprehensive evaluation. Her expression was grave. "He's made remarkable progress," she began. "But we need to talk about his future." The X-rays and blood work were spread across her desk. She pointed to the images showing the embedded pellets, the hip joint that would never fully heal, the blood test results that confirmed ongoing health challenges. The clotting disorder means surgery to remove the pellets is off the table permanently. The hip has healed in a malformed position. He'll always have limited mobility. The infectious diseases we've been treating have caused permanent damage to his immune system. Amanda paused, meeting their eyes. He's also approximately 12 years old, which is quite elderly for a bobcat. And of course, he's blind and deaf. "He can't be released," Sarah said quietly. It wasn't a question. "No," Amanda confirmed. "Release would be a death sentence. He can't hunt, can't hear predators or threats, can't navigate his territory. He needs lifetime care in a protected environment." Mike leaned back in his chair, processing. "A sanctuary?" "Yes. I've been in contact with the Wild Haven Sanctuary in Northern California. They have a specialized facility for non-releasable wild cats, with veterinary staff on site and habitats designed for animals with special needs. He'd have space, proper care, and safety for the rest of his life." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She'd known this day would come, but that didn't make it easier. "When?" 2 weeks. We want him a bit stronger before transport, and Wild Haven needs time to prepare his habitat. The next 2 weeks passed too quickly. Phoenix continued to improve, requiring substantial daily nutrition to maintain his weight and health. His medication regimen would continue for the rest of his life. Daily supplements, ongoing mange prevention, pain management for his hip. Tucker seemed to sense something was changing. He became even more attentive, rarely leaving Phoenix's side. At night, Sarah would find them curled together, the puppy's golden fur pressed against the bobcat's spotted coat, both breathing in peaceful synchrony. Mr. Peterson had recovered from his surgery and come to collect Tucker, but when he saw the bond between the puppy and the bobcat, he worked out an arrangement with the center to let Tucker visit daily until Phoenix's transfer date. "That puppy's got a bigger heart than most people," Mr. Peterson observed, watching Tucker gently clean Phoenix's ears with careful licks. "Knows when someone needs a friend." The morning of the transfer arrived clear and bright. Another beautiful California day that felt almost cruel in its perfection. The transport van from Wild Haven pulled up at dawn, and the professional team began preparing for the journey north. Sarah had said her goodbyes to Phoenix the night before, holding his face in her hands and telling him everything she couldn't say when he could hear. How brave he was, how much he'd taught them, how grateful she was to have known him. Phoenix had pressed his head into her palm, purring, a sound they'd only started hearing in recent weeks, evidence of peace finally finding him. But it was the final goodbye that broke everyone's heart. Tucker was there, of course. As the team loaded Phoenix's carrier onto the van, the puppy trotted alongside, tail wagging slowly. When they secured the carrier, Tucker sat down on the safe side of the gate and placed one paw on the carrier's edge. A gentle touch, a final reassurance. Phoenix, in his darkness and silence, pressed his face against the carrier door, right where Tucker's paw rested. Mike had to turn away, wiping his eyes. Amanda stood with her arms crossed, her professional composure finally cracking. And Sarah knelt beside Tucker, her hand on his head, both of them watching as the van pulled away. 3 months later, Sarah received an email from Wild Haven with attached photos and a video. Phoenix had settled beautifully into his new home, a spacious, secure habitat with climbing structures, warm sleeping areas, and enrichment activities designed for a blind, deaf bobcat. The veterinary team reported he was thriving, maintaining his weight, and even playing with specialized toys he could scent and feel. But the video was what made Sarah cry. It showed Phoenix in a sunny patch of his habitat, lying peacefully on a warm rock. His coat had fully grown back, glossy and spotted, beautiful in the dappled sunlight. He looked healthy, content, dignified, nothing like the broken creature they'd carried down the mountain. The video's caption read, "Phoenix enjoying his morning sun. He has regular enrichment sessions, maintains excellent health on his medication protocol, and has become a favorite with our volunteers. He purrs now during his daily health checks. Whatever you did for him in those first months, you saved more than his life. You gave him back his ability to trust. Thank you." Sarah watched the video 3 times, then sent it to Mike and Amanda. Within minutes, her phone rang. "Did you see the part at the end?" Mike asked, his voice emotional. "What part?" "Watch it again, the last 30 seconds. Sarah replayed the video. At the end, one of the Wild Haven volunteers appeared in frame, and beside her was a golden puppy, much bigger now, but unmistakably familiar. "Is that?" "Mr. Peterson donated Tucker to the sanctuary," Mike explained. "Said the puppy had found his calling. They're training him as a companion animal for special needs wildlife. And guess who his primary assignment is?" The video showed Tucker approaching Phoenix's enclosure. Even through the safety barrier, Phoenix's ears perked up, a gesture they'd learned meant he was detecting vibrations or scents. His whole body seemed to orient toward the puppy. Tucker's tail wagged, and Phoenix purred. Some bonds, Amanda's voice came through the phone. Mike had conferenced her in. Transcend every limitation we think exists. This puppy saw past the wild and the wounded and found someone who just needed a friend. And that bobcat, trapped in silence and darkness, found the light anyway. Sarah smiled through her tears, watching the video loop back to the beginning. Phoenix in his sunny patch, peaceful and safe. Tucker by his side, steadfast and true. A life once left to fade under a tree had become a life worth living again. Not because of the medicine or the surgery or the professional expertise, though those had mattered, but because one gentle puppy had looked at a broken, frightened bobcat and decided that everyone deserves to know they're not alone. Even in the darkness, even in the silence, especially there,